Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling your operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. I am here with Gary and Tisha, and I'm going to introduce them in a second. Before I do, I always like to mention other episodes people should check out. We've had past guests like David Allen of Getting Things Done, Michael Gerber of the E-Myth, and many, many more. So check those out. And this episode is brought to you by SweetProcess. Okay. If you've had team members ask you the same questions over and over again, and it's the 10th time you spent explaining it, there's a better way. There's actually a solution. It's called SweetProcess. It's a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff and save time with existing staff. And I was talking with the owners, Owen. Not only do universities, banks, hospitals, and software companies use them, but first responder government agencies use them in life or death situations to run their operations. So I was saying, Owen, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. You can use SweetProcess to document all the repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time, your team's time, so everyone can focus on growing the team and empowering them to do their best work. You could sign up for a free 14-day trial. No credit card is required. SweetProcess.com. Check it out. It's SWEET, sweet like candy, SweetProcess.com. I am here with Tisha English, who basically, we're talking about Lawvex for a second. She runs the place. Let's be honest. Okay. She's the office manager. She runs the entire place. Gary Winter is here. He's the founder and CEO of Lawvex. He has over 16 years of experience in business, real estate matters in Central California. He's a sought after speaker on cloud-based decentralized law practice management, marketing, remote work, charitable giving, solar and cryptocurrencies. He's even an adjunct faculty member and professor of legal technology. And if you're looking and watching the video, he almost looks like this, but even a licensed airline transport pilot. So Tisha and Gary, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I love to start off with Lawvex and what you do and the type of clients you serve.
Sure. Yeah, I can give you the short history. Lawvex is a law firm. Obviously, we're a full service estate and trust firm in Central California. We have offices in Clovis, which is near Fresno, a town north of there called Madera, and then also in Santa Barbara and Solvang area. So we're a regional firm. We serve that entire Central California area. We have cases all over Central and some Southern and Northern California. And we do everything inside of trust and estates. So that looks like estate planning, preparing people's wills, trusts, charitable giving, business succession planning. We also do administration of estates like trust administration, probate administration after somebody passes away, and then trust and estate litigation, like if an executor or a trustee doesn't do their job or they don't do it correctly, or someone thinks that there was some foul play in regard to someone's estate plan, like they didn't know what they were doing when they made their will or trust. So those are trust and estate litigation cases. And some of our work kind of spins over into transactional, investment real estate and transactional business matters, where we're doing mergers and acquisitions for, small to mid-size businesses. So we're, full service trust and estates, but we also have a business and real estate transactional component. That's pretty typical for firms with like us with our expertise. So Lawvex is 8 years old, and we branded my personal solo practice after I went out on my own and worked for a few years and figured it out, kind of built up my solo practice about as much as I personally could. And I had this vision for kind of a hub and spoke concept, like a decentralized business, because we were very early to adopt cloud-based technology. We started in 2009 with a practice management system called Clio that allowed us to, host all of our document management, calendaring, tasking, contact management, and communications online. So I had this idea of, kind of changing the traditional business structure, and now it's known as a hybrid or a distributed firm, where you have both a physical office to meet with people, and then you have remote workers. But we actually started doing that in 2014.
You're ahead of your time.
Well, a little. Yeah, we didn't know about COVID, but we were
prepping for COVID.
Yeah, we didn't even know.
8 years in advance.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've been, in that distributed mode with remote workers. We've never had really private offices so much for our attorneys and our staff. Eventually the paralegals are fully remote now. But we wanted to create a different business architecture to address some of the pain points, both for clients, staff, and attorneys. And so the Lawvex name is all about, pulling out the frustration, taking the frustration out of people's legal experience. And that's where the Vex name came from. And we've, created 6 or 7 key corporate values that we try and live out, for our clients, like trying to be fast and efficient, and give good education and good value, good bang for your buck, and be compassionate and transparency and billing. Those are all things that people really struggle with when they sit down with an attorney. They're worried about one or more of those things. And so we just turned them into our values and said, hey, this is how we're going to be. We'll be recruiting, hiring, training, and promoting those values to our people. So we've surrounded ourselves with a good group of folks. We've got 8 attorneys now across the 3 offices, and I think we're up to 14 staff. Tisha, do we have 14?
About 12 of us. Yep.
12. Yeah. So our total team size is around 20. And it's just continuing to grow as we've been successful at carrying out our values and our mission. We keep getting bigger, and we're looking for more of these retiring trust and estates attorneys in the Central California area that want a business succession plan. And we're looking to
take over the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah,
I imagine you have some crazy stories in the journey, because when it comes to money and when someone passes away, families fight, people fight, stuff happens. So they need someone like you, or all hell breaks loose. Who knows? I don't even know. You've probably heard it all at this point, but you have also been an early adopter of technology, which is interesting. And Tisha, I'd love to hear from you about, the importance of process and how you think about processes in the business.
Yeah. So I would say for our team, especially, we've almost doubled in size in the last 9 months. And so in the beginning, when there was a couple of us, we would use a Word document, and we had like a special folder in Google Drive and stuff like that. And as we continue to grow, we really realized like the importance of people need to be able to search things. They have specific questions about specific things. I've been with Gary for 10 and a half years now. It'll be 11 in October. And so I've kind of been there for quite some time, and bringing us to, a couple people. There was 4 of us in one tiny office, to now we have 3 offices and 12 team members across California. So in the purpose of having processes and procedures and having them actually written down in a place where everybody can find them is so important to us now, especially bringing on new people and onboarding. And as I bring in people, I have, paralegals that aren't even in California. I have one in South Carolina, one in Alabama, and just onboarding those people and them being able to find a process for that practice area of stuff that they're coming into and be able to search that. And I recognize too that, people don't want to come and ask me questions all the time, every day, because now there's multiple people. And if that wasn't a thing, if we didn't have stuff written down, that people would constantly be, hey, Tisha, what's this question? Hey, Tisha. And I recognize
you spend your whole day answering questions and you wouldn't be able to do work.
For sure. So we've really worked this last probably year and a half on our processes and procedures and having them written down, and still a work in progress. And I think it will kind of always be a work in progress. But the importance of that is that my team can be able to go to one spot and answer their own question without having to come ask me. And we allow them to, they're empowered to be able to go and seek all the information that we have written down. And they prefer that. They don't want to come ask me those questions.
I know that you use SweetProcess for this. How did you discover SweetProcess? What did life look like before?
Gary discovered SweetProcess. Do you want to talk about that, Gary?
Yeah. I think, originally when we first started, I mean, I've always been a process checklist kind of guy.
You're a pilot, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like, we got to land this plane.
Yeah.
Right. My former life, that's what I did. I was a commercial airline pilot. So I went to law school after I got laid off from a major commercial airline where I was flying the Airbus 319, 320, Boeing, 727. So in the airline industry, things are very consistently, workflowed, right? You know exactly who's doing what at all times, and there's checklists. And the beauty of it is that you can bring people together that have never met, and you meet an hour before you jump into a, almost supersonic jet and fly all the way across the country with hundreds of people in the back. You never met that person before, but we all know our job and we know exactly what to do. Well, contrast that with when I got into the legal industry and I started clerking at firms a couple of years later, as I was a 3L, and I just saw how there was almost zero, probably zero standardization, really. And I was at some good firms, and there are very good lawyers there. But at that time, this is now 20 years ago, there was, I think, almost a pride in bespoke, sort of custom, like, this is, we're lawyers, this is what we do. And the idea of actually systematizing or workflowing something out was a little bit like distasteful to them, is the impression that I got. But for me, I just thought, well, this is stupid. Why are we going to do the same thing over and over and over again and not create a chart? Like, I'm a A to B person, start over here, we're going here, and here's the steps in the middle. And Tisha knows, like, I've been making process maps and workflows, and we've been sort of learning through that since the very beginning.
And we change and look over our processes all the time. Like, we have a very good intake process. Like, we have many processes, either in a practice area or a certain thing that we do, like to how you send out the mail, to super simple things. But we don't, one thing about us is we're always changing and evolving. And so we don't create a process and just leave it. We always come back to that. We're always trying to make it better. We're revising it and things like that. And SweetProcess allows us to do that very easily too.
I actually think I can't remember exactly the first time I heard about SweetProcess, but I'll tell you where my head was at the time was we were, really continuing to expand the firm, and we've grown a lot in the last several years. And at a point where you have, a partially and a fully remote team, and you're trying to consistently create quality assurance across different, workflows, different people with different expertise areas, and our paralegals function in multiple different practice areas. And then you have attorneys, and we're talking people in different states, different time zones, and to be able to have a way of sort of housing that data rather than like a Google sheet or a Google Doc or something, which doesn't track who edited what and when it got changed. I believe I was listening to a podcast, actually, which is ironic, and I heard someone mention SweetProcess. I don't remember what podcast it was, but I remember driving in my car, and I heard it, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting, because we were just at a point, I think, in our growth where somewhere around that level, where process management really becomes critical. And Tisha and I had been diving into it, pretty thoroughly, and we saw the need, and we were looking for something, and we tried it, and I said, hey, I think this is helpful because it's got the visual workflow associated with it, and you can add in screenshots, you can add in videos, and there's an approval process associated with it, and the data component is really critical. And what I mean by that is, like, in any web-based or cloud-based technology these days has a searchability piece to it, like our practice management system and our once you're storing data and it's on the cloud, or it's software as a service like SweetProcess, it gives you searchability, and now you can find things, and you can organize things into folders, and so it's been a hit for us. I mean, we were already kind of geeked out on processes and stuff anyway. So it's been, I think, a big help, and we enjoy it. We're making stuff all the time. I made one yesterday, as a matter of fact.
When we started, to go back to your original question, like what it looked like before SweetProcess, we had an office procedures folder, and that had some Word docs in it. And even at one point, we had in our office, we had a folder that had all of our, passwords and the credit card and all this stuff. And it got to the point where then, because our paralegals used to be in the office, and once COVID hit, we realized, they can go home. We actually don't need them here either. And now I can hire people from other states to be able to come on our team and do great work. And, but as our whole team went, besides, our legal assistants and me in the office, we're like, something with this, we have to change something. SweetProcess came on, and I will tell you, I went from working on one SweetProcess to, in a week, spending hours just going through that one folder, uploading and changing things and putting it on there, and then saying like, oh, well, I'm going to make a SweetProcess for this. Or I would come on, weekly meetings, and I'm like, hey guys, if you have a question for me, send it my way, because I'm going to make a SweetProcess on it. And like, so I'm
go really answer it once and then never again, right?
Yes. And now I tell them, when I know something is in there and somebody asked me a question, I said, oh, did you search on SweetProcess? Oh, shoot, no, I didn't. And so they go back there, and then they don't even need me. So it's perfect.
I want to hear some of the big pain points that you feel it solves. I know that you talked about the onboarding and searching. The ironic part is that Google Drive is terrible at search, surprisingly. And you can't find things. You think Google will be good at that, but it's not. It's not centralized as well. From a SweetProcess standpoint, what are the biggest pain points that it helps you solve in the business? Obviously, you said it helps with empowering the staff and the team. What else do you find it helps with?
I would say probably first and foremost is the consistent and detailed training. Like the first thing that somebody's going to see, when they join our team is we're going to have a thorough onboarding process. So somebody makes it through the recruitment and hiring, we're going to onboard them. So this is something that also I think was a big weakness in our industry. I remember getting hired as an associate attorney, and showed up, they gave me a desk, and here's your pens and pencils, here's your computer, here's how you log in, and here's a whole stack of files, figure it out. And you got to just start diving in. And I think that's sort of traditional in the legal industry. And there was like zero onboarding, no discussion of the history of the firm, the culture, or anything like that. And what we've done in the last year, probably 2 years, is a deep dive into how to bring people in, and SweetProcess gives us a way that we can, record those videos. Like I've got a video about just, hey, this is where we came from. This is what we're all about. This is what we're trying to do. This is our mission. These are our values, and people can go through that and see that, and that's part of their onboarding. So I think the first thing is just having a really consistent onboarding that does an amazing job of incorporating people into our culture. That just set that aside from the technical aspect of processes is a way of consistent quality assurance for culture. I think that the second thing is quality assurance for the technical side, because we have people in multiple states, time zones, with different backgrounds, and they've got experience in the legal industry, so they already have forms on their computer that they've done a proof of service or a form letter or a certain kind of petition. Everybody's got their bank of stuff that they've used in the past. Well, that's okay, but at the end of the day, we want the output, the deliverable from our firm, to have a consistent, feel, look, and there's certain ways that we do things for certain reasons because we've learned certain lessons not to do it that way. And so with SweetProcess, we can be pretty granular. I mean, I would say actually really granular about step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how it is done. If somebody doesn't know how to do something, it's a great way to learn. And even if they know how to do something, they may need to look at it because they may not know how we do it specifically. And there's reasons for it, and we can put in those reasons. So I think those are the two biggest things that we get out of it, is just that consistency of culture and that consistency of technical competence, which is really important, with especially with a distributed team like us.
And just having just to go off of Gary, just one centralized place that we access all of that. Before it could be in this folder or this, and somebody's like, oh, well, do you know where? And having it one centralized place, you need to know whose extension is who, like you go to SweetProcess, you search extensions, and just having that one place. But onboarding, it's insane how much I built out that onboarding checklist through SweetProcess. They get that shared the day 1, and they have straight day 1 to day 5, exactly minute to minute. Like, this is what you do. This is what you click on. They don't need to come to my desk and ask me, this is what happened. They see what happens on day 30. They see what happens on day 60, your 90-day check-in, and then what happens after that. So they have a clear view of when they come on day 1 to what happens till their 90-day check-in.
It's great for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would also too, I think the difference between SweetProcess and some of the other solutions that I looked at in terms of solving a pain point, because I want to go back to what you originally asked, which was, okay, well, what pain points does it solve? On a more kind of a specific level, one of the things that the other solutions didn't do was provide for a revision piece. And I don't know how to describe that, but there's one of the important aspects of having processes and updating them is to provide kind of like a investment and ownership of the process for the entire team. Not that, myself or Tisha and I are creating every single process. We're certainly involved, but it's better when the team actually creates the process, or at least has an opportunity to invest in the creation of the process. And SweetProcess has a functionality that allows other people to propose edits subject to our review and approval. And that's a little different than most of the other solutions that I looked at. And I think it's really important because there's a bunch of stuff that's in SweetProcess that, quite frankly, I don't do. I don't write proofs of service. I don't file things with the court electronically. I don't send things out for e-signature. And there's a certain way that we do that, and we want it to be consistent. And so some of the people that are kind of, boots in the trenches there that are actually doing that work, they need to be a part of that. And when stuff changes, because we maybe changed a software solution or maybe a rule change occurred, they need to be able to propose an update and say, hey, this changed. And then it flags me, like I'll get an automatic email. Oh, somebody proposed a change to a process. I can look at it and quickly approve it, or Tisha can. So I think that review and version control of the process is really important, because if you just simply use a Google Doc or something that doesn't have that functionality, you end up with people making changes without your knowledge, and the changes could be wrong.
And I feel like the buy-in from our team, when they actually do work on a SweetProcess, we kind of build out every month, like, hey, what are you going to work on today? So that we continue to build out our processes. They love that. They're like, oh, I love that. Something I made helped somebody else. So it really just helps our culture too.
Are there any, Tisha, from your standpoint, any features that you love specifically?
I recently loved the tags, which I was not using in the very beginning. And then I started going back and I'm like, hey guys, we need to add tags because then you can search it even easier. So I would say tags. I like the ability to be able to have it restricted to certain people. So like if me and Gary have specific admin stuff that we don't want other people to see, like banking information or whatever, because it's
Keeps
secure.
it private.
Yeah, keeps it private, keeps it secure. And I know that still that it's there for we need it so that we don't have to have another offline one. I would say those are my favorite, tags and having security on certain ones that I need.
I have one last question for both of you. And, this can seem daunting, right? Like you mentioned, some people may have a folder or binder of like lots of procedures, or they have it sitting in Word documents somewhere. So I'd love to hear your advice on the next step someone listening should take to streamline their operations.
I would say for me, because I had that folder. It wasn't paper, but I had the folder on Google Drive, and I'm like, how am I going to get all of this stuff on there? I took it in chunks, but I'm also a really process person and task-driven person. So I would kind of mark on my calendar, hey, today, and I would kind of have like a list of stuff that I was going to do, or I had my folder in the beginning, and I would mark on my calendar an hour in the beginning, because it'll take you a minute to get used to it and start entering things and like see how you like to do it. And then once you get into it and you're like, or I'm going to tackle this one process and put it in there today or this week. And then pretty soon, like you can, once your mindset changes and you're kind of in it, then you can spend more hours if your time allots for that. But I would say in the beginning, I said, hey, I'm going to do like how to do a deposit today. So then I kind of made a goal for myself to just do one procedure or worked on it for 1 hour. And then I can get to the point where like one day I worked on it for like 4.5 hours for one thing. So I think you just really have to build, but you have to take micro steps to change your habit, because it is a habit change. You have to change from doing it your old way, whatever that looks like, to the new way, and slowly entering it into SweetProcess. But then also like once I kind of went through that list of things in that folder, I knew what was most important. Like we kind of talked about like, oh, what's most important. And as people were coming to me with questions, I'm like, okay, this is most important because this is obviously a question the other team members probably have too. So I made it that next process or procedure a priority.
Yeah, the cream rises to the top, I guess, as people ask you, then you're like, okay, let's do it as it's happening.
Yeah.
Gary, what about you?
Yeah. I think having, formed and counseled like probably thousands. I mean, we've certainly done hundreds of new companies over the years, because that's one of the things our firm does is we help start businesses, and we represent those folks and their, transactional needs going forward. And then just our own journey of, our business is that there are different phases in business. And in the beginning, you really just, your business is your job, and you're kind of just self-employed, right? But if you ever want to have a true business, my personal definition of a business is that I can leave for a month and everything keeps rolling. And I don't think actually I've ever left for a month, but I certainly have left. And actually this week on Friday, I'm going out for a week and a day, and it is a no-brainer. For me, Tisha and I were talking about this yesterday, but it's because we have invested time and money into workflows, processes, checklists, things like this, and training. If you don't get what's in your head as the entrepreneur and the business owner, if you don't get that out so that you can, set your team's expectations correctly in terms of what this is what I'm expecting you to do. This is how I'm expecting you to do it. And here's a way that you can continue to access that information, even if I'm not physically present. It's really important for remote teams. And it's really important if you really want to consider your company a business. If you have to be there 24/7, then it's not a business. You've just created a job for yourself. So I think, from my perspective, it's all about really creating that business, and there may be no more important thing, actually. I mean, once you've figured out how to sell your services, your goods or whatever, and get them in the door, and now you're working on people and production, those next steps in the overall process of any business, you got to have this and some form or another to be able to actually train people effectively and have your factory working correctly.
First of all, I want to be the first one to thank both of you. Everyone, check out lawvex.com. Check out more episodes of the Process Breakdown Show and SweetProcess. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of SweetProcess. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to SweetProcess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to SweetProcess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.
Hi, this is Owen, the CEO and co-founder here at SweetProcess. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast interview, actually, you know what I want you to do? Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That way we get more people aware of the good stuff that you get here on this podcast. Again, go on to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Looking forward to reading your review. Have a good day.